Well, welcome to a new Harry's Garage video. And today, we're not reviewing a car. What I'm going to do is have a look at what is happening in the global car market and just try and make sense of some of the recent financial announcements and also strategy changes. And what I mainly mean there is the cancellation of quite a number of EV projects that were coming out, new electric cars that were well into development and then right at the last minute got canned. And if I look at the FT, they reckon about £65 billion has been written off by our major car companies over the last 3 months. And that is just catastrophic for car companies to invest that much money and then say, no, we won't bother with that, we'll carry on with what we've got, or we'll develop something else. We sort of misread the market. What is going on? Now, let's just put some background into this. You have to mention net zero. That was sort of 2018, that was bubbling along. Tesla doing extremely well, Dieselgate, I've mentioned this before. But the combination of all of that was car companies were having to look at their projection, what cars they were going to develop, powertrains, etc. And there was Tesla with its Model 3 and just this dramatic rise in sales and highly profitable and an amazing PE ratio on the share market. So, that must be the answer. And those companies that jumped quickly onto potential EV strategy and were talking about, well, selling mainly EVs from 25, 26 on and then completely EVs from 2030, they are the ones that have caught the biggest cold. And my goodness, it's flu, it's proper man flu they caught, because the write-offs now, as the market didn't move as quickly and in the direction they expected, here we are in 25, 26, well, they've just got to stop because they're just not selling cars and there is no profit being made from these new cars, and they've got to change strategy. What do they do next? I mean, I think the one who caught the biggest cold is probably Stellantis. Mainstream cars, they went fully on an electric strategy, and in the States, and we can see what's happened in America since Trump's got in, and cancellation of all the subsidies you used to get if you're buying an EV, they've all gone, and the market is now real. This is, the people are buying what they want to buy, not what they've been guided to buy or tempted by subsidies. And it's completely changed the complexion of the car market, and the car manufacturers, if they actually want to sell cars, have got to go where the customer is. They got too focused where the politicians were leading them, is the unfortunate truth behind all of this. And I'm going to just concentrate on Porsche, because there's a brand that through Evo, they could basically do no wrong. They came out with fantastic cars, customers lapped them up, and they delivered fantastic driving cars. They could just do no wrong. And financially, they were extremely successful. And they had very good margins on cars, and they came out with the Cayenne, and that went nuts, and Macan, and they were selling 170, 180,000 SUVs a year. That was subsidising, if you like, the sports car development, and they produced fantastic sports cars. What could go wrong? Taycan, that's what went wrong. They introduced Taycan, and it was fresh and new and one of the first sort of premium EV cars. And if I just look at the sales, I think their best year was 2021. It came in 2019, 2020, right at COVID. It was slightly unfortunate. But 2021 was their best year, and the year they sold 41,296 Taycans. In 2025, according to the financial report I saw, 13,578 new Taycans were sold. That's a drop of 67%. And they'd introduced a new model, an upgraded model in 24, and they're expected to fly. It didn't happen. And if you look at 911 sales, well, in 2021, they were producing 38,464. In 2025, they produced 52,208, and that's up 36%. So while the Taycan plunged 67%, 911 went up 36%, and the price had increased around 25% during that period. Profits for the automotive unit just on its own plunged from 5.2 billion to about 90 million. I mean, just written off, no profit whatsoever. They basically said, we're going to have to take a big write-off here on the development of EVs. We don't know if the 718 electric is fully cancelled, but it certainly has not come to market. And what I do know about that car, I saw a George Cacker report on it last year, that was going to be priced around 120, 130,000 euros. Very expensive, pure electric. And Dr. Michael Letters, who's now CEO at Porsche, has decided, we're stopping this. We're not coming to market with such an expensive Porsche Cayman replacement. The market is just not there. What's interesting, they haven't actually announced they have cancelled it, but there is talk behind the scenes they're going to continue with a petrol variant of it. But to develop a petrol replacement or plug-in hybrid, perhaps 718, that is not going to be a thing of the moment. That's 2-3 years at least. So they're going to be without their introduction sports car, if you like. They're going to have to rely on the 911. So catastrophic for the bottom line over the next few years. The only car they've got coming to the range is the new electric Cayenne. And if that goes anything like the electric Macan, yes, they will sell a few to the faithful, but they're not going to make good margins on it at the moment. What they need is their sports cars. And I think, well, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens at Porsche, because I think it's going to dictate what other brands are going to do. And they say at Porsche, they're basically going to expand the portfolio and drive into higher margin cars. Well, that means more expensive cars. So I think we're going to see more variants of 911, the STs, the Tourings and that sort of thing. Keep that GT3 engine, that flat six. How far can we take it? We've seen the success of the hybrid turbos and the Turbo S, how much performance that adds. So expect to see many more variants of 911 going forward. And also, they're talking about a premium one. We saw Mission X, that pure electric sort of Porsche 918 replacement. It never appeared, looked stunning. Well, I would expect one of those is now being cooked up very quickly so they can battle in the hypermarket with a plug-in hybrid to take on F80, if you like, and those sort of cars. So Porsche, what a mess. They'll come out of this. They're too strong a brand to disappear. The other thing about the electric 718 replacement, well, you can't differentiate like they had with 911 rear engine flat six and Cayman sort of mid-engine flat six engine, if you like, for the premium models. Because where you place the batteries, you can't have a rear battery and a mid-engine battery model. That electric 718 was going to be basically the electric 911. And so 911, I suspected, was going to continue with an internal combustion engine as far as they could take it into the future, and their electric sports car would be that Cayman. There wouldn't be a sort of electric 911 sort of different model to the Cayman 911, unless they went super upmarket and took on the real big boys. So Porsche, they've taken the medicine and we're just going to watch this space. So while some manufacturers have had to completely tear up their future product plan, others are being quietly getting on with it. And the two in particular I'm going to pick out are Toyota and BMW. And they didn't rush into this EV strategy, everything getting replaced with EV. Toyota hardly did anything on EV, but I think BMW is the really impressive brand out there. They did not follow the herd. They basically said, look, we tried i3 and i8, didn't get the take-up we expected, but we think they're still good cars, electric. Electric has a future. What we're going to do is develop models that we can put different power plants in, so we can keep them pure ICE or plug-in hybrid or electric. And although the electric ones were slightly compromised, I'm not talking about the new i3 and i3X that's just come out, but i4 I'm thinking of and i5, they still had a petrol alternative. So customers could keep with the brand and actually choose the power plant that suited them best. What power do they want? Do they want a pure electric company car? Fine. You've got home charging, fantastic. If you want performance, well, we'll sell you an M4 fire breathing twin turbo straight six, just like BMWs have passed, and that's been super successful, an M2. Or you could, if you really want a full electric vehicle, well, we've got something called an iX, but we're not expecting big sort of volume. We've got a premium offering, and they made good margin on those. Super clever strategy, and it left them with, well, profits of 10.2 billion. But Toyota was a superstar in profitability, huge number of cars, global presence everywhere, 25 billion plus they made in 2025, while VW jumped into electric, and all those brands all together sold a lot of cars, but made 8.9 billion, so less than half than Toyota. So who are the winners in all of this chaos out there? Well, I was at Goodwood recently. They had a media day and they had the Chinese brands there. And I thought, I need to get to know what's happening in this arena better. So I met up with BYD, and they have a premium division called Denso, and they are doing some really interesting cars. Basically a Panamera rival, super high performance, 800-900 horsepower. And I drove their sort of Defender lookalike. It's the only way to describe it. And it was super close. And actually, I thought it was very impressive. High performance, 670 horsepower. It's going to price point 70,000, something like that. But they can compete because they've got incredibly fast development times, lower labour, mass production, and they're going to hit the Western manufacturers big time, as far as I can see, in Europe and the UK. What's interesting though, it's not pure electric. A lot of them are the sort of scaled down ICE engines, power generator that charges the battery, and it's a very interesting drivetrain. Chinese are very keen to promote new technology, letting the engineers get to us these super efficient cars. And unfortunately, here in the UK, we have this crazy zero emission mandate brought in by the British government of both colours, not a Labour thing as well, but it's just not reality. And someone somewhere has got to have a reality check on this, because we are not going to hit 33% electric car sales here in the UK in 2026, and we're certainly not going to get to 80% by 2030. And all it's doing is killing the car industry. They're discounting like hell to move the few electric cars that they're selling. It's 24% of market at the moment. And that means the manufacturer are going to be having to pay fines if this carries on, or they're just not going to sell cars in the UK. They're just going to disappear. And I just can't see how the government can afford the unemployment and the closing down of car plants and sticking to this mandate. It does not make any sense to me for UK PLC. Somewhere, sometime, they've got to realise that themselves. It's so patently obvious. In Europe, they are having a bit of an adjustment. They've got a deadline of 2035 for sales of internal combustion engines to stop, but it's only at 90%, so there will be beyond there. I think there's plenty more negotiation. It's really only the UK with this 2030 sort of timeline that no one else is working to, where the real problems are. The other thing the government has done is almost to discourage people buying electric, which they've done by announcing that they're going to have a pay per mile tax revenue on all electric cars and plug-in hybrids. That is mad to introduce that at this point. There's got to be better ways of doing it. People who are hesitating on the fence, that is a sort of turn off, because you just think it's got a spy on the miles I'm doing, and is it the best way we can do it? There's got to be a better way of doing it. But anyway, I can't tell the governments what to do, but I do. When I saw that announcements, I thought that's just going to slow down car sales. The thing about electric car sales that gets me is they're not true sales. As I say, the dealers are discounting about £11,000 on average in 2025. So it's a false market. You then get a potential subsidy towards buying an electric car if it's being made in a green factory or whatever. That's quite often in France at the moment because they've got all that nuclear power. So we're supporting the French car industry. Yes, we're supporting the UK Renault dealer. But is this the best way of using taxpayers' money when we've got so many other things we should be doing in this country? Subsidising people to buy new shiny cars does not seem top of the list right now in the madness that we've got going on in this world. And the other thing that gets me about what's happening in the car market is how the cars are changing. I'm just going to get a copy of Evo magazine because a few weeks ago they borrowed my Project 8 and they did this story, 5-star icons. And they're just the recommendations of cars to buy. And what got me, and I've found this as well, how many new cars have we got coming out that car enthusiasts are saying, well, that's going to be just fantastic. We're sort of looking through the back catalogue and thinking, hang on a minute, I think cars were better a few years ago than they are now. Now we've got this compromise going on with cars because they've got to be electrified, they've got to have plug-in hybrid and things. And I just thought I'd go through the knowledge section of Evo just to see what is for sale, what has changed. Because when I book cars in, quite often I think, oh, I was at Audi and I'm thinking, what should I book in? And the only thing I could see possibly to book in was that RS3. RS6 doesn't exist. They've got an RS4 now, but you know, R8 and things have obviously gone. So I looked at roadsters and convertibles, and in Evo, there's a page and a bit of them. I haven't actually counted up how many there are, but I went down and today there is only 13 convertibles in production. What's happened? And 2010, we were selling 60, 70,000 convertibles a year. I think it's down to 12,000 now. And if I look at the convertibles they've got listed here, only 3 of them are priced under £100,000. And 2 of them, well, Ariel Atom and Caterham, aren't quite what you expect from a convertible. The other one is the MX-5. The one that was missing, I noticed in here, was the MG Roadster, the all-electric Roadster. That isn't actually listed in Evo, so you could count that one in as well. But there's a real change happening in the car market that they're just not producing. If I could list plenty of saloons, estates and SUVs that are still in production, but super minis, hot hatches, we're about 17 in today's market, and 5 of those are electric. So yeah, the market is really changing. If I look at coupe and GTs, which is a very big group, 3 pages of those, but actually only 17 in production today. And the only ones priced under 100,000, I think, is the Honda Prelude, the Lotus Emira. I could almost put in the Corvette. That's bang on 100,000, but just over, I think, in the UK. But again, it's BMW who are scoring. If I look in there, there's M2, there's M4, there's M3, CSL, there's all sorts of BMWs. They're the ones that actually keep it going. But you know, things like the Z4, they've gone as well. So what is now happening in the car market for the enthusiast market? The new cars have sort of gone off the boil. People aren't buying new performance cars. 296 is expensive. Ferrari, all their prices have gone right up, and there is hesitation on the plug-in hybrid cars. SF90 and the new Testarossa 849, be interesting how that one goes. 1,000 horsepower Ferrari, and relatively in this crazy world cheap at 500,000 when it first came out. You'd think that would be a superstar, but it didn't prove to be. It wasn't particularly well packaged, it wasn't super good looking, and it didn't sell, and it's absolutely not selling secondhand as well. But what is selling are the iconic Ferraris, the normally aspirated Ferraris, the manual cars. they're the ones that are absolutely flying. And yeah, Ferrari 360 CS, or if you've got a 458 Speciale, gone to crazy amounts of money. Lamborghini Countach obviously gone up a lot, but also has Diabolo and Murcielago. And people are now hunting out these driver's cars from a few years ago, and that's the car they really want. They don't want all the nannying stuff. They don't want to be pure electric. I think anyone who's thinking that a pure electric sports car is a good idea, at the moment, need a head tested. That is not where the market's going. I feel sorry for people with the Alpine A290, for example. It has no range. Everything you do to engage and make a performance car more exciting then reduces the range of your car. And so it's a horrible situation to be in. You know, you want smaller tyres, you want more efficient tyres, you want more streamlined, you can't have spoilers, you can't have downforce, that all adds drag, and therefore you go less miles. And if you're herring around a track with an electric car, it runs out very quickly, I can tell you, having done it in the past. So something's got to change there. And I think we'll continue with these sort of cars, and they're going to get ever more popular. I think new cars have got even more expensive, and we've seen a resistance to plug-in hybrid. So maybe not 80s cars, but these, 2015 from the McLaren and the Project 8, 2018, 2015 for the P7, and the Ferrari 458, I mentioned the Huracan. I was in the latest Lamborghini Temerario the other day. Stupidly fast. I was at Goodwood, been doing around Goodwood. I haven't been around Goodwood that quick. We were touching 190 something on the back straight at Goodwood, but it was heavy and it only took a lap and a half and the tyres were completely shot and we were sliding around. We had to come in. So yes, they've got the performance. I mean, stupendous performance, but there's only so much performance you can really use in the real world. And it didn't sound anything like a Huracan STO or something. It was more McLaren-like in the sound, and that is a signature of Lamborghini. They've got it with the Aventador. So it's a very tricky time at the moment for enthusiasts, because we're just not seeing the cars coming out that make super desirable. Very good design, some of them, but not quite there, and all with the nanny and the ADAS stuff on them as well. And it's tough for the manufacturers because they're struggling to sell and make profits. They've got somehow to get £65 billion back, and then they can reinvest and what future project they can do. Just imagine if they hadn't gone down the EV route, where that £65 billion would have got us if they'd concentrated on internal combustion, making it super efficient and got the cars lighter and more fuel efficient that way than just charging down this EV avenue that turned out to be a bit of a cul-de-sac for quite a few of them. So there you go, that's my take on today's car market. An utter mess. I hope it does get sorted. I hope most of the names that we know and love survive it, but I think it's a very tough year or two coming up. And what's happening in the Middle East at the moment is not helping, and shortages. I don't even want to go there. I'm going to continue just enjoying these sort of cars, looking through the classifieds and just seeing those bargain cars from 2015, 2022, super exciting. Like I keep banging on about my Maserati Trofeo, but at the weekend I was in a Porsche Panamera 4S, brilliant car. It's only about £30,000 worth now. The other thing, just on electric, they're getting cheap enough, some of them in the classified. I think if it does suit you, for God's sake, go electric. It is the cheapest motoring going if it works for you and you can charge from home and your commute is daily. Renault 4 and 5 will continue to sell. Model 3, I am still a big fan of Tesla, despite all the baggage with Elon Musk. But the Tesla 3 and Tesla Model Y, still super efficient. They do a lot of miles per kilowatt hour. You've got the charging network. They're very intelligent cars. My accountant's got one, for example. He's got two wonderful classic Alphas in the garage, but every day is in the Tesla. Makes perfect sense. That's the way forward for me. So there you go. There's a bit of a ramble. What's happening in the car market in 2026. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, keep watching, keep subscribing. More videos coming on very soon.